This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to this podcast, Season 6, Episode 31. My name is Timitra. I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
We have Jaime Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. So this is Episode 31 of Season 6. So it's the penultimate episode of Season 6, right? But more significantly than that, it's actually episode 180 of all of the recordings that we've done for this podcast. And, that's just 20 episodes away from the significant 200, right?
I love a milestone. Well, I guess that's a larger discussion. Are we going to do the last episode of Loki?
Oh, yeah. No, I guess we should do that.
We could wrap it up with Lower Decks and just leave it at 5 episodes of Loki.
But one.
Penultimate one. Yes, I feel like we're in a Monty Python skit now.
Yep. Oh,
and according to our first headline, there might be more stuff to do.
Oh, goody. All right, well, let's dig in. So, fact check. Mac Whisper, which I mentioned last week, it was actually written by Jordy Bruin, or whatever I said last week. So, Jordy Bruin, Mac Whisper. Great little application, so I highly recommend it. And we'll dig into the headlines, and I've got the first one up here. This just came out a couple of days ago on the Facebook that initially I saw a post saying December 9th. I'm like, hey, December 9th is coming. And then turned out that, no, there was another episode, November 25th. So they've announced the 3 episodes with David Tennant and Catherine Tate as November 25th, December 2nd, and December 9th. These are on BBC Player and on Disney Plus for the rest of the world. So that's another question. Are we going to cover those while they're out?
Well, we certainly could. What do you think, Spotcast fans? Do you want to hear us talk about Doctor Who's 60th anniversary episodes? Let us know.
Did you say fans? Don't you mean fan?
Fan. Well, we got more than one fan. We see them on our Slack channel.
Yeah, we have at least 3.
At least 3 fans.
Not counting us.
We love us, to be fair.
We love us. We're great. Yes.
I'm a big Jaime Lopez Jr. fan, frankly.
Yeah. All right. So, what do you think, Jaime? Should we do the new Doctor?
Let's see. How are they spread out on the calendar? Let me try to understand this. So, right after Thanksgiving.
Oh, wait. Thanksgiving's over. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we had Thanksgiving like 2 weeks ago, Jaime.
I should have said right after. I should have said after Thanksgiving, so it's still true no matter what. After Thanksgiving. And what was the other day? The second.
When is Thanksgiving?
When
is American Thanksgiving?
Wait, I'm pretty sure it's the 23rd, but the way the weeks line up makes it look like it's the 30th. One sec.
Oh, I've got it as 23rd here as well. Yes, you're right. No, I have a deadline that's coming up around Thanksgiving or Black Friday. No. Yeah, Black Friday is the 24th, right?
Yes, 24th. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. I'd like to welcome all our friends to the after show where we usually talk about our scheduling.
So when do you guys celebrate Remembrance Day, Jaime?
What is your Remembrance Day?
That's a trick question. Everybody has to say Remembrance Day.
It's 11/11.
11/11 at 11 a.m.
So Veterans Day is what we have is probably the equivalent given the name.
Oh, you don't call it Remembrance Day?
No. Is it for folks who have served and passed? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh wait, well no, that's Memorial Day. I apologize. Veterans Day is for all veterans. So Memorial Day is probably what I'm thinking of more in line with your Remembrance Day.
Yeah. Carrying on.
Speaking of new stuff coming to the TV, this one I had kind of forgotten was coming. So they're doing a TV adaptation of the very popular video game Fallout. And this week we got a rather cryptic little teaser trailer that dropped that reminded me, oh yeah, they are doing this and it's coming in 2024. So we got our first little taste. It's not much of anything. It really is just a little sort of countdown following Pip-Boy, a little person who's the icon for the game, with a little countdown clock on it, apparently counting down to April 12th, 2024, that we're going to see a Fallout Day is the event in the game, and that's going to be the day when it launches. So it's coming to Amazon Prime. The star is Walt Goggins, who of course is one of our favorites from Justified. Really tremendous actor. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this one does, because it's funny because it's a very original game in its way, but it also is a little derivative of sort of larger sci-fi. So it'll be interesting to see if they can make this show stand out. And the cast seems really good. It's Goggins and Ella Purnell, Kyle MacLachlan, Zelia Mendez-Jones, Aaron Moulton. It's going to be interesting to see if they can make something new out of a sort of post-apocalyptic world,
Is it like a zombie apocalypse thing?
Yeah, there is. I mean, they're mutants, I guess, is more what they are. They're people who've suffered from radiation, from sort of the fallout of a nuclear annihilation. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of do something different. But again, building in really good actors is a good start, because hopefully they've got some meat to chew on. But yeah, interesting news. Jaime, are you a Fallout player?
Not modern stuff. I was thinking, like, what was the last one? Probably like Fallout 2 in the late 90s, when it was a very different kind of gaming experience. It was more like Diablo, I guess, point and click-ish.
Yeah.
And so people online were kind of wondering, well, is Amazon going to be able to handle the style, the dark humor? I'm like, do you not watch The Boys? Because it feels like that'd be right in line. Just take those people and say, great, are you done with that? And they'll make Fallout, and you'd probably be half of the way there in terms of the kind of storytelling that you can tell. I mean, they clearly do a lot of the dark humor in The Boys.
And it's telling that that's the same network, right? This is the same people who bring you The Boys. It's Amazon Prime, right? So you might be satisfied because they will be comfortable with that level of sort of over the top and occasionally gory humor.
It's funny. It's almost struck me as I've never played it, but because of the icon guy you mentioned, I always wondered, like, is it like a Archie Comics kind of thing? Like, got that look to it, right? But I mean, at least the marketing does, but I guess not the game itself, right?
No, the game itself is pretty grounded and gritty. But there's this sort of running motif of they basically created all these brands inside the game, and it's part of the running sort of joke of the game that you keep running across these,
like Slurm and Bachelor Chow and stuff like that.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's all these sort of embedded little product placement things, but they're all kind of subversive and weird. Now it is my duty on Spotcast to deliver some crushing news.
No.
Tom Cruise's new mission has been delayed. We got news this week that Paramount Pictures has delayed Mission Impossible 8B by almost an entire year. It was supposed to come out in June of 2024. It is now coming out in May of 2025. And this is because of course, the actors' strike and, of course, the writers' strike have led to a lot of delays in Hollywood productions. And so this is going to be one of the casualties that is going to have to kick down the road a little bit for all those fans. So if you were just dying to know what's going to happen to Ethan Hunt in after Mission Impossible, what's it called? Fallout?
Doesn't matter what it's called.
Mission Impossible 8, Dead Reckoning. I apologize. Dead Reckoning was the first part 1, and now there's a part 2. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously these things happen when these circumstances come up, but it's weird to have something that is sort of like billed as this like 1-2 punch and gets kicked down the road another year. That's a long time to make people wait for a cliffhanger. I don't know if it ended up a cliffhanger. I've not seen it, and I will not see it.
It wasn't really a cliffhanger. It was kind of, well, I mean, I guess you could call it a cliffhanger, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens kind of thing,
Yeah.
So.
Are you crushed? Are you going to be okay? Do you need to lie down or?
No, actually, it's also like in the same article, they're talking about A Quiet Place Day One, which is, I guess, the third Krasinski film.
Mm-hmm.
Is it him doing it? Because they're talking about him doing If as well. Below Ryan Reynolds, Krasinski, and Alan Kim and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Yeah. So, it's moved up, not moved back.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the bottom line: is we're going to see a lot of this continuing. We're going to see a lot of stuff moving around the calendar. TV shows we thought were coming at a certain point, movies that we thought were coming at a certain point, are all going to get shuffled around because, frankly, there's just not enough content, and the studios are kind of scrambling to fill holes because they know how long it takes to produce these things and roughly what they're going to have. And it's going to be a problem for the next few years. There's no way to have a protracted strike like the two that have gone on and not have consequences.
Right. And they're talking here about how the mission landed after or just before the Barbenheimer came out, right? So
yeah, I mean, I recall we did a segment on it on this show talking about the fact that it kind of underperformed for what they expected for it. So,
well, I mean, I think it was a bit conceited for them and for anybody who's thinking that we're coming out of this pandemic and or a writer's strike, actor's strike, without cause. Because I mean, the Maverick was kind of like, oh, good, we can all go back to the theaters. But I mean, the reality is a lot of people didn't go, and it doesn't mean that theater has returned. I mean, a lot of things haven't returned to normal, what we kind of used to think of as normal, right? Not surprised. There's going to be casualties.
Yep.
I'm still surprised at how many of these fictitious universes don't cover COVID, right? I mean, it's like it's like denying the Black Plague or the first pandemic, right? What was the other pandemic? The blue, black. What was the other one?
Well, the influenza pandemic and
last everybody wore masks. Yeah. Yeah. Oh well.
I guess they could do it like there was a Robert Pattinson movie that like weirdly ends with 9/11. Spoilers for whatever that movie is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The thing I also picked up here that was kind of interesting in terms of, they're committed to making this other movie, but they also kind of want to distance it from the box office disappointment that they had, that it will no longer be Dead Reckoning Part 2 as the title. So whatever its new name, it says we'll arrive at the new name, but doesn't say what that new name is, but it will definitely not be named Dead Reckoning Part 2, even though it's essentially what it is.
Yeah, I mean, spoilers for those of you who haven't seen it. It doesn't end well. I mean, it ends, but it doesn't end well because he doesn't stop the MacGuffin from becoming the mega MacGuffin at the end of the movie. Sorry, Jonathan, I don't mean to spoil it for you, but yeah, and like I said, it could have ended like 10 times in the when I saw it. Like I could have I kept thinking, oh wait, we haven't seen the motorcycle stunt yet, right? So. It kind of ends, the bad guy gets away with it. But I mean, they've always sort of had that, Darth Vader spinning off into space kind of, vibe in a lot of Bond movies and things like that, where, Spectre gets away with the thing, right? And even though he solves the problem of the day, there's always some other major thing. Notwithstanding Daniel, what's his name? Daniel Craig's solution to the last Bond movie. I don't know if you've seen that one yet. But yeah, that he kind of goes out with a bang, as it were. Yeah, I don't know. It's not soul crushing, but I think, it is what it is. It doesn't, I mean, it could, I'm totally okay with it coming out with another name. In fact, I was really disappointed that it came out in one half, I think they could have suspended more or gotten more attention out of it if they hadn't called it Part 1 out of the gate, right?
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they'll drop it back, Part 1 back into the theaters to try and goose up the sales a little bit before the second part comes out, because have been a while.
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. Yeah, and he didn't get. He was disappointed. Tom Cruise, I'm talking about, was disappointed that Oppenheimer was going to trump him with IMAX space, right? Because the way the theaters were booked, it was going to kick out. Oppenheimer was going to kick out the Dead Reckoning, right? So it's the same reason why I went and saw the last movie, which was the post-apocalyptic sci-fi, never been done before story. The Creator. The reason I went and saw The Creator in the first week is I figured it was going to last long in IMAX, right? So it's too bad. We used to have this really cool theater in Toronto, the Cinesphere. I think it's still under renovations or something like that. But they would always run these kind of movies just ad hoc, right? You could go see them whenever you wanted to or needed to, right? So I mean, I that's one thing I don't like about IMAX is they always sort of show the latest movie, right? They never really go back into the coffers and show some of the amazing IMAX movies we've had over time, right?
Yeah, it's funny because there's been a trend over the past few years where more of the sort of mainstream theaters are showing older movies. So, over the past few years, like I've gone to see Back to the Future back in the theater, Goonies, they put all kinds of stuff back in the theater, which is awesome. It's just that they're often in like one of the smaller side theaters. Like, put Back to the Future back in IMAX. Like, do me something huge. The first time I saw Back to the Future was 1984, I believe, when it came out. We saw it at the Cinesphere. And so the first time I saw it, it was massive. So that made an impression and made it one of my favorite experiences and led to me, lifelong fan of the film. So.
Yeah, I mean, I saw an Alien cut, like they did an IMAX version of Alien, the original Sigourney Weaver. Well, she did all of them, but the original 1977, 78.
Yeah,
that one came out. And I also saw Phantom Menace in IMAX with a special 3D cut, right? And I mean, it was cool. I mean, they even cut out some of the horrible scenes, which made it a little bit better, I'm just a little tiny bit better.
It's nice. I took son to go see that when it came out in 3D just to a regular theater, and he loved it. He did. He's got a real, so like, as a lot of kids in his generation have a lot of love and a soft spot for that movie.
Yeah, I thought I saw that with Xavier, but and then I've seen like things like Blade Runner 2049. I've seen Blade Runner in IMAX as well, like just because at that theater, Cineplex, like I said, right. Sometimes Scotiabank Theater will play stuff, but not very often. They're usually playing the big hit, right? And I mean, it's annoying because I've got two IMAX theaters within walking distance of each other downtown, right? I did see the Stop Making Sense. I went and saw that on IMAX. That was really good. And by the way, the Talking Heads were on Colbert a couple of nights ago.
I saw that they were doing that. I heard he confessed that he blew off one of their concerts to go work on some schoolwork, and they were disgusted.
Yeah, and she said, you're probably glad because they were all high, and the students were all high, and you probably wouldn't have made them get your essay done. So, cool. All right. Now, this next story, I thought we talked about this, but hit us with it, Jaime.
Yeah, it's unclear to me if this is just news of its landing, or if this was a previous change that was completely unrelated for pricing around Apple TV Plus and other Apple services. So, each of the services seems to be moving up. There's not a really great chart here, but like if you were used to the $7, I'm just going to round up so it's easier, the $7 per month US for Apple TV Plus, soon you'll have the opportunity to pay $10 per month.
Yay.
And similar for Apple Arcade going from $5 to $7, News Plus going from $10 to $13, and I didn't see music, but I'm pretty sure that's going up too. Why not, right? Include
Apple One's got to go up then. That's the one that I have, right? Which is the whole bundle.
So right now, the individual plan for one, which is something that I have, is I'm going to call it $17, and soon it will be $20. Family goes from $23 to $26, and looks like Premiere goes from $33 up to $38. So,
and we had didn't we have a price bump like in the last couple of years too?
Yeah, it looks like Apple TV Plus is probably getting this first bigger bump because I think it's been $5 for like forever, and then now is going to $7. But the way to get you on the raising revenue. So I'm looking at the services. So right now, like before this bump goes up, I'm paying $17, which includes Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, and the 50 gigs storage tier of iCloud Plus.
Oh, so, you're on the iCloud Plus version.
Right. But if you were to, so for $17 today, if you were to purchase those individually, it'd be $19. So you save a couple bucks. And it looks like you'll save a few bucks here as well on that. So if you were in for something like Apple TV Plus and Apple Music, you might as well just go in for that because you really should pay for iCloud to get, at least some more than the 5 gig storage. And then you're essentially getting Apple Arcade for free. That's kind of how I justified it in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to get the 2 terabyte iCloud Plus, so I'm sort of stuck with the Premiere, I think it's called, right?
Yeah, and even if you're not a subscriber, you're not into this sort of stuff, the sort of key thing that you've probably heard time and again on this show is everybody is raising their rates. So,
yeah.
The calculus becomes all that much more important and especially now that we're like about to hit this big lull of, what's the best thing to do? Will you continue to pay? Will you put on hold? And since we are coming up on American Thanksgiving, Black Friday deals is what I will be keeping an eye on because I don't know that a lot of people will want to, prepay for a year when it's cheaper, when it's like, well, what am I going to watch? Like one show in 12 months? But if you make it for like $1 a month, like I got, Hulu originally, I was like, maybe, why not? So I think we should keep an eye to see who gets really aggressive or creative with like, okay, there's not enough potatoes to bulk up this stew. How do we sell this? How do we sell this meal so people are interested in it to get them through the lean times of content not really being there?
It is what it is.
And what won't we do for Canada while we do that to the United States?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they don't charge us an extra $50 that they do, like in the States. I know they charge us the exchange rate, but like when we buy Apple gear here in Canada, we always pay a little bit more than just the exchange. So I'm glad, because these are digital services, they can't figure out how to do that, right? Or I don't know if it's the CRTC or whoever's doing it, but somebody's adding on or making Apple add on an extra $50, $100 depending on what hardware you're buying, right? Which is always annoyed me.
You've got translation costs, so all your manuals suddenly need...
Yeah, we have to ship them by truck, and yeah, exactly.
And then extra bandwidth costs for the unnecessary U's here and there. It adds up.
That's true. That's true.
Ow, Jaime, ow.
Yeah.
The person who has to sit there and look in the manual and be like, all right, so what do we put in imperial units and what do we put in metric? Because that matters.
Change the word of color for every instance we mention it? What? Yeah.
That's a lot of labor with a U.
Labor with a U, yes, exactly. Yes, it is. So my last thing here is, there's one more thing after this, but my last thing is I saw an Ahsoka 1980s TV style trailer somebody's put out. It's a bit long, I actually thought, for a 1980s trailer, but it's got the whole sort of, A-Team kind of vibe to it. So it's fun to sit there and watch a recut of the in an 80s style trailer. So cool. And covering up, the friends and and the one is Hera the pilot, who's always dressed like a pilot, no matter what she's doing, right? So
yeah.
Heart of a pilot.
Which reminds me, after we finish recording, I have a joke for you guys.
Yeah. This is a weird trailer for a song that is going to come out. Does it have a date?
November something. I saw earlier.
Interesting. So Now and Then, the final Beatles song, which we'll talk about that, debuts on November 2nd, and then the music video on November 3rd. So presumably it'll be on Apple Music and Spotify and stuff on the 2nd of November. So they got, the surviving Beatles. You've got Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, and they're going to use good old AI voice tech off of George Harrison and John Lennon to finish their unfinished track recorded back in the 70s.
Yeah, they found a John Lennon track, right?
Yeah. I think when I watched this trailer, it's like, oh, Yoko Ono said, yeah, I think I have a cassette tape of that. And thank heavens people are keeping this stuff. We've talked about in this show of fun things that I've seen, was it Paul McCartney singing Elton John's Yellow Brick Road, or what if Elvis did Baby Got Back from Sir Mix-a-Lot? There's all sorts of weird sort of funny things, but filling in the pieces here goes a interesting direction. So Tim, I'm going to ask you first here, because we've definitely long seen your opinion on the artist intent and etc. out of George Lucas or Steven Spielberg tinkering with the original Star Wars trilogy or with E.T. What are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's funny you asked that, because when I kind of saw the clip on, I think it was on Twitter, I saw Ringo Starr had posted in the Beatles, which is another Twitter account that I follow, had mentioned it one after the other kind of thing, and they showed this little trailer thing. I think that's what you've got here in the clip. And immediately I thought, oh, okay, they're going to do that again, because they did that Free as a Bird thing. When they did the whole archive series, right?
The anthology stuff, yeah.
Anthology series, yeah. They did 3 songs, I think, right? Free as a Bird came out and it charted, right? So I don't know, I can't remember how high it charted. And they did that one, I think George Martin's son, Giles, did a mix of on an album called One, which was a redo from the original tapes kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting to see the Beatles doing stuff, like, I don't know, maybe it's my bias, but yeah, I think they're given a pass on it by me. But it is kind of, you kind of wonder what the intent is. I mean, I don't think it's a marketing play like it would be for other people. You know, like it's not like they're doing like the 30th anniversary. Oh, we found a Kurt Cobain tune that we're going to redo, right? Because if you listen to, there've been a lot of documentary on In Utero, because it's the 30th anniversary of In Utero, and it's amazing to listen to how that was like their sort of second. I mean, it wasn't their second album, but it was the second one where they sort of were in the mainstream, right? And it's the last album they recorded together, right? But yeah, I don't know. When you dig out, I think I'm probably more critical of the Rolling Stones' new album in my mind than I am of the Beatles doing this. Right, I can't see this being, you know, Eleanor Rigby or you know, I Am the Walrus or Let It Be or Hey Jude. I can't see it being that caliber, you know. But yeah, it is a bit. It does have a sort of a feel of like a Black Velvet painting. You know what I mean? Like from an art perspective, which is, you know, it is kind of kitschy, but
it's tricky because so many of these artists. Now, again, obviously, you know. Paul very much, Ringo slightly less, was, you know, the heart of the Beatles along with John. And so you kind of want to give them some latitude, but at the same time, it is kind of weird. Like there's this sort of push, and I don't know if it's just greed from the sort of legacy of the record studios and stuff like that to continue the band's existence long after, you know. How many albums have we seen from artists who have been long dead that aren't just necessarily compilations, but we found this tape. We found this. Oh, there's a live recording. Oh, there's this. You know, there are artists obviously who've been dead for 60 years who are still getting, you know, brand new albums. You know, like
Elvis had a song out a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
right?
Like what's going on? And I don't know. It's challenging because I do definitely, you know, like there's some artists where, you know, every time they put out a new Stevie Ray Vaughan, I'm usually, my ears perk up. But more often than not, you know, a lot of these are, you know, well, they took a demo and they put some spit and polish on it. I'm like, but do you think they really wanted those to see the light of day? I don't know.
Well, there could be unfinished works too. I mean, there's a lot of that too. Like, but it's like you don't see them digging out a new or making a new Picasso painting, for example, right?
Yeah.
They do find sketches, and they do find, you know, people, you know, the find something in their attic that their grandmother bought when they, you know, when Picasso was a kid, kind of thing. But you know, you don't get that kind of, like in that art world, you don't get it. I mean, music is different because there are bad cassette tapes lying around, and we do have technology to make them look better. And because it's not even a 2D medium. It's like it's a medium that can be resurrected in a sense. You know, like I've got some bad bootlegs that I've heard better mixes of over the years. You know, like I'm thinking of like some Pink Floyd stuff that I have that's just horrible on LP, but I've heard remixes of it. And Pink Floyd just did a remix of their live performances from 1972-73 when they were touring around Dark Side of the Moon, right? So yeah, I don't know, but you're right. It's kind of like, do you give Sir Paul a pass or whatever, right? So I don't know. All right, so that's it for this.
Yep.
All right, that brings us to the main part of the show where we talk about something Star Trek, and this time, once again, it is Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 9, The Inner Flight. Yeah. So, I forgot what my pitch was.
I think that's Inner Fight.
Inner Fight. Oh, yes, The Inner Fight. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like right here, in terms of Easter egg, the title definitely spoofs The Inner Light, which is probably why that portmanteau became a real word.
As Georgia Banks would say. I'm trying to remember what my pitch was. You know, it was in. Yeah. So hit us with your elevator pitches. Jonathan, go first.
I'll go. So I had nothing brings strangers together faster than the risk of imminent death.
Yep. I mean,
yeah, I couldn't get anywhere good with this one. I went with, you know, the very basic. The crew of the USS Cerritos needs to safely find and relocate ex-Starfleet personnel who are being targeted by the mysterious shuttle, but also have to deal with an extra reckless mariner.
So my pitch actually I was chatting with Keen again today, of course, but my pitch comes from the very last scene, and it is I Aim To Misbehave.
Yep.
Yes, sir, Bob.
Let's be bad guys.
And that's pretty much what he says at the very end, doesn't he?
Yeah, pretty much.
Spoilers if you haven't seen the show. I just want to go to the episode and see if they've got a synopsis here, because we always record right after they come out, and we never get to see what the TLDR is. So they say Captain Freeman assigns the lower deckers to an overly safe mission to try and keep a self-destructive mariner out of danger. That's the elevator pitch on the IMDb page today.
It's a fair assessment.
Cool. Yep.
Best pew pew pew.
I don't remember the pew. Well, there was a lot of some of the swirly hand-to-hand combat that Mariner and the Klingon dude have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that as well. The duel with the Klingon on the storm planet and the shards of glass falling from the sky.
Mm-hmm.
I went a little sideways on this one and took the best bit of action as Freeman versus the Balak-alike, the character that looks like Balak from the original series. The puppet, and she's like, "I know what this is. This is a robot, or this is a puppet." And she just picks up the little alien and starts just shaking him. No, I can see he's got internal organs. Stop shaking him.
And we finally did see a Cardassian.
Not a Kardashian?
No, I've always said Kardashian, but a Cardassian. Like people make fun of the way I say JavaScript, right?
You're doing your own thing. You're an original.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it lends itself so well, like keeping up with the Cardassians,
Oh, I'd watch that show 100 times out of 100. Garrick and Ducat star in Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
So there was tons of Easter eggs, obviously, in this one. I mean,
oh yeah.
And Keen posted a bunch too, so we should probably. I want to see what he got one that I didn't get. I'm curious to see what you guys have for it. I'll start with the original series spacesuits.
Oh yeah.
Those, because with with the things on the side and the helmets and the tall helmets.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what'd you have?
I had Thomas Riker, who is now canonically alive, as everybody wondered. He was part of the Maquis. He was captured. He turned himself in after he took the Defiant, and there was separately during the Dominion War this the Maquis had been wiped out, right? Like the Cardassians of the Dominion just completely wiped him out, and we hadn't seen Thomas Riker or heard of him in anything else since
the late 90s.
Yeah, so people were like, is he dead? Did he get wiped out with everybody else? Like, no, he's canonically alive as of Lower Decks, where they're presumably going to go try to find him. Even if we don't see it on screen, he is, at least as far as Starfleet concerned, canonically alive post-Dominion War.
Yeah. Yep. And so you've got pretty much the same ones. I think the only one you didn't put here was 7 of 9 was mentioned as well.
Yeah, I mean...
And Beverly Crusher.
I think I had that in my notes. If you look below, it was the Retrieving 7 and Crusher, Thomas Riker, and Nick Locarno. So I didn't pull that up because, yep. Although I did like the... I kept it in my quotes, so I can spoil one of my quotes now, which was when Boimler rolls over in his sleep and says, "Teach me how to tap dance, Beverly Crusher."
Yeah, that was a good one, yeah.
I laughed out loud. That was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
We get to meet Beverly Crusher? Yeah, no, I mean, obviously the crux of this episode follows the Nick Locarno character, which of course was played by Robert Duncan McNeil in Star Trek The Next Generation, the famous story where the cadets do a mission. They're trying to do some very special flying stuff and accidentally get one of their people killed, and Locarno is the one who ends up getting booted out of Starfleet Academy for engineering this. And Robert Duncan McNeil played this character and was so good that when they were trying to fish around to find somebody who could play the Tom Paris character, they were like, well, let's just call Robert Duncan McNeil. And he came back and played the voice in this episode of Locarno, which is fun, especially because he already played Tom Paris in this show.
Yeah.
And then Ensign Sito, who's Ensign Sito Jaxa, was a character who first appeared in that episode, but then went on later on to be on the very now famous Lower Decks episode of TNG in the final season, where she gets recruited to go on a mission and she ends up getting killed. And it turns out that Ensign Sito and Mariner were very close friends, and she was just ahead of her in the academy. And so we learn one of the reasons, or the reason, that Mariner has been chafing at being promoted all these years is that she never wanted to have a rank higher than Sito, because if it was good enough for Sito, it was good enough for her. Which is kind of a nice breakthrough for the Mariner character, because not just has she been on this little reckless streak, but this has been her sort of, raison d'etre for the last four seasons, right? She's just self-sabotaging, and the question was, is she doing it deliberately? Is she doing it inadvertently? Is she just a flake, or is she, maliciously trying to sabotage her career? And it turns out she was maliciously sabotaging her career.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And doing it for like that really sort of understandable but still messed up reason, right? Like, although this is not a quote from Mariner, it might as well be. So Baylan Skoll from Ahsoka saying, "I miss the idea of it, but not the truth, the weakness," feels like it would resonate here as well, of like Mariner liking the ideals of what Starfleet does, but not the become the general and send the troops in to die needlessly, like Ensign Sito did, her friend.
Mm-hmm. And so we'll just sort of jump ahead in the episode, but obviously this whole episode sort of culminates with finding out that this mystery ship that we've been kind of wondering about all season, that initially we thought was destroying all of these ships, but then turns out it was stealing all these ships, and now turns out to be kidnapping famous people throughout the universe, is actually, Nick Locarno in his ship. So, tying all these threads together in a, I will admit, pretty satisfying way. We've talked all season about, well, who could it be? Is there a usual suspect? Wouldn't have called this one, and it's a really deep cut, but it's a good one.
Yeah.
The chain here of how these Easter eggs fit together is so bananas. So working sort of backwards, right, from Nick Locarno. So he and Ensign Sito were in that episode where Wesley Crusher and the others like covered up the Starfleet Academy accident, where like somebody died when they were trying to do that illegal and dangerous maneuver in their ships, some sort of like shuttles or something they're flying around. And if you recall, the reason Ensign Sito even ended up on the Enterprise is because Captain Picard specifically wanted to give her a chance to get past that ugly mark on her record.
Yeah.
Right. And she did end up getting chosen for the actual sort of role here because there was a Cardassian defector or something, and they needed a Bajoran captive or slave or something to sort of sell or attempt to sell the idea of what he was doing and returning. And the title of the episode where this goes down for Ensign Sito meeting her demise was in that 7th season episode of TNG called Lower Decks.
Yep.
It sort of brings it all sort of full circle here of how does this show, which we said, like the Lower Decks episode. It seems really well put together here. I was really impressed how this came together, and a little surprised in some respects that it's in the penultimate episode of this season rather than a season finale or even a series finale. So interesting choice here.
And it was interesting because they talked about there was one sort of quick line with the multiple aliens on the planet along with our heroes from the Cerritos. One of them says, we were just sort of minding our business on our own ship and my lower deckers betrayed me. And the other one says, me too. And so it's also tying in that as well, that, on these other alien ships, the lower deckers have sort of rebelled, right? So, I think that's what we're supposed to be left with, is that the people who are down on the planet were the sort of leaders of these things, and the lower deckers were the ones that kind of set them up in working with Locarno. So it's a lower decks revolution.
So the one thing did you notice the insignia on Locarno's jacket?
No, that was a good one by Keen. I didn't notice it. I saw it in his notes afterwards. The logo, yeah. On
our Slack channel, by the way, folks, he posted that in our spoiler zone that the maneuver that the cadets were doing in First Duty, which is the name of the episode, is like it's a circle with like the 5 of them, I guess, heading towards each other or something like that. Which is why it's particularly dangerous, and it's drawn on the Klingon bird of prey, and it's also on his jacket. So, yeah, which is cool. That was caught by or pointed out by Keen.
The other two Easter eggs that I had, so we talked about Balak. That was of course, the weird alien. Very famously in the end credits, you see that the creature over and over again. So that's why it kind of stands out. But of course, that's the episode with little Clint Howard, right? Pretending to be sort of the Wizard of Oz behind this giant creature. And then Mud's Bar, the name of the bar that they go into to try and get this information is Mud's. It doesn't explicitly say Harry Mudd's, but that seems like a pretty direct reference. Yeah, the
Mud's Bar. It's like Quark's Bar 2 weeks ago. Quark's Palace.
Well, we've seen a few different iterations of Quark's Bar over the course of the series, right? Because it's now apparently he's franchising.
Well, now that his brother's, Grand Nagus, he's probably got easy to get permits and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, some quotes.
Let's see. I had that cold open.
We didn't talk about the big question. We'll come back to the big question.
The cold open where they started off by repairing this research station. And of course, the research station is a trope from all these Star Trek series as well. These two people down on a planet doing research into ... And this fellow and his partner who are researching these venomous tremble lizards. Their skin's drenched in neurotoxin and their blood is a corrosive acid. Oh, and if you touch them, your eyes shoot out of your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Followed up by the when he does finally get attacked. Oh wow, the eye thing is true.
Yeah.
But also when the fence goes down, of course it always does, right? The fence goes down and these things start running inside, and then of course Mariner goes on her little crazy mission to try and lure them outside, and they fix the fence. He says, and with the fence repaired, I'm back to respecting these noble creatures. Yeah. Good stuff. Mariner, again, always delivering the killer one-liners. Tanya Newsom, awesome. Where's an unexpected high-stakes space anomaly when you need one? And we talked about teach me how to tap dance, Beverly Crusher. That was Boimler. My line for the episode, the winner, was definitely when they're going to the pickpockets section of the planet. This is Rutherford and Shax and Freeman. And Freeman says they're going to the pickpockets district, and Rutherford says, "Joke's on them. These pants don't even have pockets." Wait, they do. Captain, did you know we have pockets?
Yeah. So the big question is, did we know that they had pockets?
That was my big question. Did we realize that there was pockets? Are there pockets in Star Trek uniforms? I never seen anyone put their hands in their pockets. Not once, not ever.
No, exactly. But I kind of wonder if the costume, the what do you call it, cosplay people, if they put pockets in their pants, right? So,
if you're a Star Trek cosplayer and you're listening to this, we'd love to know, is this a pragmatic versus authentic?
Well, I know Carol
kind
has
of thing?
patterns. Carol has patterns for all these uniforms, right? For all the Halloween stuff that she does, right? So I'll have to ask her if there's pockets in these pants that they design.
I mean, it's funny because they do also not seemingly wear belts, but then you see them have tools on their belts, like phasers and tricorders and stuff. So I think there's magic, magnets, Velcro, something's happening there.
Yeah, actually, it's funny, they mentioned the belts because there are a couple of early first season episodes of the original series where you see them with leather belts, and the leather is wide where the phaser goes into almost like a pocket kind of thing, right? So there are gun holster kind of style belts in only in a few episodes, not every episode, right? Yeah, they do kind of carry their communicator on their hip, right? Like the Blackberries of old.
Yep. I mean, did you have anything else for your quotes or your questions?
No, for the quote, I doubled down, or double jeopardy. What is it? The double jeopardy? Daily double. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Daily double on the, he wasn't kidding about the eye thing from the cold open. My bigger question, we sort of already talked about, of does this episode resonate as tying together TNG and Lower Decks? And the sort of minor question I have is, exactly what color of blood do Klingons have here in Lower Decks? Because I'm pretty sure the Klingon had pink blood, right? The way we would have seen in Undiscovered Country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was at one point where he's attacking somebody and got covered in green or blue goo. Well, I guess he's killing an Orion or whatever, right?
Well, no, it's the part where he gets stabbed when the shards of glass start falling. He's got pink blood, and then when they go up to the Klingon ship, he kills the replacement captain and comes up covered in pink blood again.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that Pepto-Bismol kind of color that they put in. So I guess it wasn't, like a horror movie for Star Trek 16 Undiscovered Country, and it's not green like a Vulcan or a Romulan.
Well, I think it's like a shot at the Klingons in general that it's the pink blood, right, as opposed to anything other scarier color, right? So like a black tar kind of color, right?
Yeah, it's particularly interesting that Klingon blood wine is, of course, blood red, as in most mammalian creatures here on Earth. So
wouldn't it be funny if they're drinking like pink Pepto-Bismol? It wouldn't would they seem really tough if they were drinking a pink liquid of some type?
That would be pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, especially when Spock goes and has a drinking contest with them in the other show, Strange New World.
Yeah.
Cool. I did have one more quote, but I can't remember what I thought I'd written down, but I can't remember where, or maybe it's a quote from Loki, but I can't. It's not in my notes, so I don't know what happened to it. Oh well.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Now, back to the show.
But should we move on to Loki now?
Yeah.
All right. So here we are, Loki, season 2, episode 4, the heart of the TVA. Name of the episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you got for your pitches?
All right, Jaime, it's your role.
I went with, as time is running out, he who remains is the only one who can save the day.
I went with a little more grim, so I'm just going to just flag, if you haven't seen this episode, we're going to spoil the heck out of it. So it's impossible to talk about without talking about the end. So that being said, you've been warned. My elevator pitch is a bunch of MCU heroes are dead again, but at least this time we only have to wait a week and not a year to see their resurrection.
Yeah, it was an interesting episode, especially the sort of anticlimactic solution with the timely solution. Let's put it that way, right? The timely occurrence at the end there.
Yeah, it was quite fun and funny. I like subversive television. I like writing that takes you to the unexpected. And again, they really built it up over the course of this episode. Oh, it's going to have to come down to this. And we're going to do that. And of course, it all just goes completely differently than you think it's going to go, right? Mm-hmm. You think you've got it figured out that, okay, so Victor Time's got to do this. Maybe he's going to turn on them. The idea is that he's supposed to put on the spacesuit and he's supposed to take this device out and he's going to fix the loom. But maybe he'll betray them, or maybe there's some sort of subversive thing going to happen there. And then it turns out, of course, he walks out the door and he turns into spaghetti, and then the loom explodes and everyone dies, and it just fades to black, and you're like, well, that is not where I saw that going.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, we literally end with just, an explosion, theoretically everyone dying, although what they're hit with is not necessarily an explosion, but is actually time radiation, so that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll circle to my big question, but, there is some ways that they could have gotten out that weren't available to them before. So maybe it's the end and maybe it isn't.
I think Mr. Data is going to figure something out because he's going to remember something that they didn't. Oh, sorry, wrong show.
Turn off the inertial dampeners.
Yeah. Send Riker a message.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I figured next week they'll just be like in an endless loop, right? Or they'll go, or they'll come to some conclusion because it was like a timey-wimey loop thing, because at one point Loki comes across himself from an earlier episode where he gets, I don't know what they call that wand that they use to disintegrate people.
Yeah.
Disintegrate variants, because he ends up disintegrating himself in front of Sophie, right? And he goes, I'll explain later.
Yeah, and that's what I had for my best pew 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 was the moment where Loki realizes he has to kill himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was, you realize that you're in a temporal paradox, and you know that how it plays out and you have to play your part is always very interesting. And that moment where our hero Loki realizes that he has to kill a variant Loki in order to continue what he knows happened is very surreal. And then, of course, he looks at Sylvie and says, this will all make sense eventually.
Later, yeah.
Which is probably, and again, he happens to be staring directly into the camera when he says it too. So of course that's for us, right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way that he comes around the corner, and then, you realize you're in that moment that we saw a couple episodes back, and you realize, oh, because we saw Loki get disintegrated, how we didn't really know in the moment how that happened, and we thought, oh God, did we just see the end of Loki, or what? How did this happen? And then you realize, no, this is just a temporal loop, right?
Yeah, because it was actually in the what do you call it, the recap at the beginning of the show too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It would have been cool if it wasn't in the recap and you kind of just watched it and went, wait a minute, let me go back 3 episodes again and watch that part again.
Yeah. Jaime, did you have anything different for your pew pew pew?
I just wrote down 2 items: the instant spaghettification.
Yeah.
As a fun thing to watch, and to a lesser degree, because I guess, for reasons that would have made this a horror movie, Miss Minutes and the tiny box with the Docs and her crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like we get the intent of them being smushed into a fine paste, I assume, but we don't actually get to see it. We see
Hunter B-15 when she goes in to speak to them again and finds the remains, and it's just like,
well, it's like a box with ground meat in it, right? Sort of.
Well, they'd be liquefied, right? They would literally just be like a big pile of spaghetti sauce. It would be horrifying. But I mean, obviously that they're not going to show that. That's too horrifying for a Disney Plus show. But even just the look of just absolute horror and disgust on B-15's face as she realizes what has happened is, it's pretty scarring. So I had some Easter eggs. I felt like the beginning of the episode, when they're sort of going through the time stream, felt a little bit Doctor Who-ish. A little, I think that might have been deliberate. A little, this show has sort of not been shy about its homages to other time-related science fiction properties, and I feel like that was a little bit of a nod to Doctor Who. A little bit after that, there was a mural on the wall at one point where they're standing there and they're looking at it, and you see all of the Kangs, the purple and the blue. You see all the Kangs fighting off on the one side of it. It's only on the screen.
Yeah, at the end of the hallway when they're chasing Victor Timely?
Yeah. Yes. It's when he stops at the end of the hallway, and there's 2 murals, and the one on the one side shows all of these Kangs basically fighting for supremacy at the top of this tower. And, again, the question is that a trigger point? But it was, that was a very overt reference to Kang and the sort of the larger legacy of what's happening here. And then the funniest / best Easter egg was when Ouroboros, of course, is trying to illustrate how he thinks that this can be this problem can be solved, and very much does the Christopher Lloyd scale model gag from Back to the Future 1 and 3 of, I didn't have time to paint it or do it to scale, and I didn't have time to carve out figures for everybody, and that was such a Back to the Future reference and joke. It was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys catch anything else?
I feel like it was intentional, even though it's not exactly the same, to have Miss Minutes access denied. Feels a lot like Dennis Nedry's little from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. In the moment I heard it, I thought, oh, that sounds familiar, but I couldn't place it. That's a really good pull, Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to jump to the quotes, and then we'll circle back to the big question. So the part at the beginning where they're talking about how they can solve this issue, and somebody's going to have to go out there and do this thing, and Mobius says, okay, well, Loki's really going to have to hoof it then, right? Just throws him headfirst into the bus. Yeah. That was very funny, because he just says it so deadpan too. That was really good, Owen Wilson. I'll delete the expletive here, but Sylvie says when she's chastising Mobius for wanting to not necessarily focus on the problem at hand.
And eat pie. He wants to eat pie.
He wants to eat pie. Everything is turning to bleep, and you want to leave it to them while we go and have some pie? Great idea, Mobius. And that was a good scene too, because that's the first time she sort of references the fact that he doesn't seem, especially now that he knows he's a variant, he hasn't really expressed any interest in where he came from or who he was or, all that too, which is interesting. There's a lot of speculation on the places like Reddit and some of the vlogs are people talking about where he might have come from and who he might be, and is he tied to something we've already seen or not. And so, yeah, I think that's another sort of tip towards there might be a bit of a reveal coming as far as who Mobius really is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's also the scene where Kang is talking to Miss Minutes and says, wipe all their memories, right?
Yeah.
Or wipe her, and she's talking
about Renslayer, but then he says, wipe her memory, and he says, wipe all their memories, right? From this was a great scene. The scene between Sylvie and Loki, whether they happen to be in the pie room. Burn it down, easy. Annihilating is easy. Raising things to the ground is easy. Trying to fix what's broken is hard. Hope is hard. And Tom Hiddleston crushed that. And then followed up by when she says, it seems like any way we do this, we're playing gods. And he stops and there's a long pause and he says, we are gods. That was such a great line. Oh, good writing. And yeah, I mentioned the line when he disintegrates himself, he says, I promise you this will make sense, which that very much felt like he was speaking to the audience.
I had Obi saying, it's like a snake eating its own tail, which is nice because his name is Ouroboros, and that's exactly the symbol.
Literally what Ouroboros is.
Snake
Yeah, exactly.
Eating its own tail.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, and they meet, the two of them meet, and Victor Timely is reading Ouroboros's book manual of the TVA, and Ouroboros is reading Victor Timely's version of the book.
Yeah, that's the temporal paradox where they each inspired each other to write these things. Yeah,
and they want to get this. They want them to inscribe their name in each other's books. And she says, "Can we solve this problem before we and inscribe later?"
Yeah. So my big question is, obviously this seemed like it came to a pretty apocalyptic end. It, they see this explosion. We see Victor Timely's spaghettification, as Jaime very eloquently put it. And we also see, this wave sort of everybody, and then it cuts to black, and that's the end of the episode. But they explicitly say in this episode that rebooting the system will remove the block on magic being used at the TVA, because that was the limitation that was put on Loki previously, was that he was unable to do any magic in this.
And both Sylvia and him say,
"Turn the block
off."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, my question was, did they magic their way out? Is there a magical solution, or is this just part of the temporal paradox? Because I think that that seemed pretty convenient that they could do that. Although we did also see the magic used in a different way. Strangely, that resulted in brainwashing Brad, mystifying Brad, and having Brad kill Renslayer, which again seems incongruous. It seems very unlikely that Ravonna Renslayer is just dead in that kind of way. But yeah,
it's interesting. I don't know. It's like it was a bit like the Sopranos, right? Just fade to black.
Yeah, although now we know we're getting 2 more episodes, so at least there's that. But it'll be interesting to see how they pull this all back together, because I really feel like this was, I think, the strongest episode so far this season, because we've got all the players in the same place, right? The previous episodes we sort of had some stuff happening at the TVA and some stuff happening in one timeline and some stuff happening in another timeline. Here we finally get all the players in the same place, and then they all die. So it's pretty good. And like I said, I think that the performances in this one were super strong, I think, across the board. But that scene between Sophia DiMartino and Tom Hiddleston, Loki and Sylvie in the automat, where they're talking about, how all this is going and how it's going to go and what it all means. I thought that was a really terrific scene by 2 really good actors.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering when they were in the automat, like, where did they rebuild those doors, or did they find a restaurant that had them or whatever? Because they used to be all over the place back in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
I think I actually went to one when I was a kid.
the sort of retro future tech thing vibe that they've got going on in this, and we saw a bunch more of it. Obviously, we've been seeing it in the TVA sort of straight through, but even more of it this season is just, I love it. It is just hitting me right where
everything's orange and brown.
Oh,
right?
Like God, it's like my childhood come back to vivid life. Everything's like that sort of color of orange and brown. My grandparents used to have a carpet that color.
There's no avocado things though, because avocado was the other color that you could get.
It's true. That was the chair that was up at the cottage, right? Yeah.
I think we had avocado refrigerator or an avocado stove when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But that orange and brown, that was everywhere.
Oh yes, it was. And my grandparents had an orange and brown carpet in their house, which was vivid. Mm-hmm. But on the bright side, every time I spilled something, nobody noticed.
Yeah, that's true. So I think it would be really brave, and of course stupid, but really brave if the next episode was 54 minutes of just black.
And then at the very end, something happens?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But yeah, people wouldn't stand for that kind of that would be like a very artistic approach to doing the next episode, but they wouldn't do it. It could start with black, right? Could start with like a good minute or a minute and a half of black and people like scratching their heads. Because I remember when The Sopranos came out, or the end of The Sopranos happened, and the gist of it, in case you missed it, is Tony Soprano is supposed to get killed at the end. And since it's a story of his life, the screen goes black for a minute. And people thought there was something wrong with their televisions, or they thought there was something wrong with the broadcast.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't understand that was the end, right?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And that is probably the end for most of us.
Just nothing?
Just nothing. I can tell you, I've had a couple of experiences where my brain has shut down and all I remember was black.
Mm.
And
well, the battery.
That's true.
Well, before we get too super existential, let's dig into the watch list.
Sure. You're up first.
I'm up first. So, this dropped today. I will probably check it out over the weekend. There's a new Lego cartoon, Lego Marvel Avengers Code Red, up on Disney Plus. And I really like the Lego video games, and I really like the Lego cartoons. Certainly watched a ton of them with my daughter over the years. The Batman ones, the Justice League, the Marvel superheroes, the Harry Potters, all the different iterations of all these different things over the years. And it looks funny, and I'll be curious to see what this is about. It doesn't look like it's high, heavy, or hard, but it looks fun. So yeah.
Cool. All right. And for me, so I got a couple. One is this is just I don't even know if it fits in with this story, but I just saw that Geddy Lee of Rush is doing a show on Disney Plus called I'm pretty sure. No, Paramount Plus, called Geddy Lee Asks. And then our bass player is human, and he interviews 4 prominent bass players. The bass player from Metallica, I think, and what's it? We just saw him, Les Claypool.
Yeah.
And 2 other bass players who I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's interesting to see him actually getting into television now. So he's done a few documentaries over in long form interviews recently, and written some books. That's kind of cool. And the other thing I'm watching is kind of ties in with Captain Marvel, is that Brie Larson is in a show called Lessons in Chemistry, which is very much, it's not a comedy, but it's kind of it does have funny moments. It's got a bit of, she's a chemist who, did I talk about her last week? I can't remember. Maybe did. Did I? I remember. I'm having a deja vu moment. Vujade? This has never happened before?
Yeah, that's right.
I did talk. It was my pick last week. Yeah, it's my pick this week again. It's so good. So we're 4 episodes in. Of how many, I don't know. But
are you enjoying Lessons in Chemistry? I've heard some mixed reviews.
Well, it's good. What could people? I mean, like I said, steam comes out of my ears whenever I see any of this sort of misogynist stuff. But that's just the way it was, right? I don't know. What are people saying about it's bad?
I just happened. I was listening to it was not an explicit review, but they were talking about Brie Larson, and they were just 2 people on a podcast were talking about how much they both really love Brie Larson as a performer, and obviously she's Academy Award winner. She's terrific in a lot of the stuff she does, but that her choices over the past few years of projects to work on, like, even just making the decision to jump straight from winning the Academy Award into being Captain Marvel, and then, just some of the movies that she's decided to do that haven't really...
What'd she win the Academy Award for?
For Room.
I haven't seen Room yet.
And so they were talking about just how, it seemed like she was sort of really ascendant, and now it seems like she hasn't really had a real star turn over the past few years, other than obviously Captain Marvel, which, as Marvel movies go, is actually one of the lower rated and less loved ones. So yeah, they were just essentially saying, hey, it's a bit of a shame that she hasn't made more. And one of the people said, oh, I watched the first few episodes of Lessons in Chemistry. I gotta admit, I didn't care for it. And that was, again, all I had heard from that. And I thought, oh, that's disappointing, because obviously when you have somebody of her caliber doing a television program, you think going to elevate it, and they did not feel that way.
Well, looking at our show notes here, or sort of our spoiler notes on the Slack channel, Dave Price asks, did anyone catch Mariner using the double axe handle punch against the Klingon?
Yes. Yeah, very Kirk. Very Kirk.
With the two hands, or the putting her two fists together, and yeah, he would do that all the time. Like, I don't know how effective that is, but yeah, and of course we had the Vulcan nerve pinch as well from
Talin.
I don't know what her name is.
Talin.
Just remove some vowels from a word and it becomes a Vulcan name.
That's right. Put an apostrophe in inexplicably. It's all good.
So my pick is South Park joining the Panderverse, which is a special event on Paramount Plus. As you all may recall, there's some kerfuffle between, I want to say it was Max, because they're supposed to be a unique home for South Park episodes, and yet somehow things that appear to my eye to be effectively South Park episodes come out on Paramount Plus in a separate contract, which is a little strange, because it's like, well, technically it's an event because they don't come out every week. They don't come on a regular basis. This one is 45 plus minutes, so it's longer than a typical episode. No commercial breaks, just start to finish. But nevertheless, it is effectively, realistically, another episode of South Park. In this case,
well, didn't they do a movie or something like that recently?
They've done several. They did COVID, post-COVID, the pandemic special. I think I forget the name.
Two of each of those. I think they did.
Yeah.
And they're only on Paramount Plus, because we talked about that, right?
Yeah. You can purchase them on the iTunes store, but if you want to stream them, that's the only place you can find them. And that's the same true for this special too. I did watch the trailer for this earlier, and it made me laugh. But I'm a little bit behind on my South Park because I didn't have Paramount Plus until recently, so I want to catch up before I watch Joining the Panderverse, because just the trailer did make me laugh out loud.
Yeah, this one is a send up, in my eyes, predominantly what Disney has been doing with the leaning into the multiverse of stuff, and also we've made this diverse by changing the race of a character, an existing character, as opposed to making an altogether new character who happens to be of a different race.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
All right, and Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevOfTheHair.
All right, it's almost like it's trademark sign-off, right? My name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA, and I am on the Twitter machine and the Mastodon, Instagram. What else am I on? Threads, Blue Sky. Yeah, that's where you'll find me. And till next time, we'll see you. Will we see you in the future? That's the big question.
Is there a future? Is there?
This episode just ends with the sound of a bang and then just white noise for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we could just theoretically end this episode right here.
But we won't.
See. So now I'm going to have to leave that in, which is hard. All right. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Yes, and. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and indeed.
I should be writing today, but I'm, being a rebel. Being a rebel.
Is that what we're calling procrastinating now?
Well, I don't know if it's I was doing some more research, but the thing about it is, I had written or planned out these 3 lessons in such a way that, they were ready, and then I got stuck on the not being a completionist. I got stuck on the very last part. I had a bug that I figure I'll deal with later, and then I was doing some research on it today, and I went down a whole bunch of rabbit holes. So yeah, I spent yesterday on a rabbit hole, a technical one, and today I was running on another rabbit hole on the content I'm going to put into the course. So yep, but yeah. But it's got to be done soon, because it's like rapid fire. It's a big topic. It's got to get out before, certain events. So, yeah. And we have a big Mystery Black event next week, Scary Fast event, which we'll do another episode of More Than Just Code for. Did you see the announcement for that, Jonathan?
No, I don't think so.
So Apple it's funny for Apple, because they normally do their announcements on Tuesdays at around 10 a.m. Pacific time, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like 1 p.m. our time, I think, right? Yep. And they're doing this one at 5 p.m. I think. Jaime, is that right? Which is 8 p.m. for us.
5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern is how the invitation went out.
And it's basically like an Apple logo, if you can imagine, with like a white the white drop shadow or outer glow, and it kind of it rotates around the Apple itself, the Apple logo, and then it morphs into the smiley face from the old Mac Classic desktop.
Ooh.
So yeah, so we're thinking it's going to be some scary fast Macs. Maybe they're going to be all black. That would be cool too, Jaime, right? They were all like space gray or space black or whatever, with black keyboards and black mice and black trackpads, which people always want, but only on the very pro machines. I think they had it on the iMac Pro. Remember they had that one special edition. It had black keyboards and black trackpads. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. It's probably we're all anticipating it's going to be the M3 announcement, right? So, and I mean, who knows? It could be iMacs, it could be MacBook Pros. Could be any number of things. So, but like for that kind of an announcement, they were probably doing. I think it's probably the mainstream Macs, right? What's your theory, Jaime?
Yeah, people are kind of wondering if it's going to be M3 chip debut. I guess it's reasonable, just in time for the holidays, right? Get your kids, get the family, and get whomever stocking stuffers. These $2,000 MacBooks.
After you bought all your computers for your students in school. Yeah. I'm waiting for the day when the computer comes out that does the work before I even think about it.
I mean, it feels like with large language models like ChatGPT and Bard and stuff, we're almost there, right?
Bard, is that a new one?
Bard is Google's competitor to OpenAI / Microsoft investment ChatGPT.
Huh. Yeah. I put an AI on itguy.com, I don't know if you saw it. But it basically the way chatbots, what they use them for is you feed it information, and then when people show up and say, "Do you do this?" It goes, "Yes, we do this, and here's a link to it," kind of thing. Pretty interesting. You have to pay a little bit of, you have to subscribe for some time on ChatGPT, and then obviously get the code to do the AI. But it's pretty neat. So yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, it's surrounded with all kinds of upsells, right? So you have to be really careful about that.
Yeah. The natural question is, can it be broken to tell you to assassinate the queen like it did that one guy?
Huh?
Yeah. There was somebody who got egged on, apparently, allegedly egged on by some chatbot to attack the then living Queen of England.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Did I send you guys the link to the New York Times podcast where the AI went kind of nuts and started to convince the guy that his wife didn't love him and his
Yeah, I heard about that.
So trippy. That was like genuinely weird and unsettling. And again, it was basically playing the part that it thought that this guy wanted to play of like the sentient AI, right? Like it was extrapolating from what it had learned from crawling that, sometimes people fall in love and their computers become obsessive. And he's like, it was really weird for a second until I realized what it was doing.
I'm just watching it. I'm reading a tweet by Paul Hudson that says, ChatGPT confidently wrong makes it a real minefield when it comes up with more complex things. And somebody posted, he asked ChatGPT, how many zeros are there in 55,008? Right? And ChatGPT came back. It said, in the number 55,008, or so 55008, there are 3 zeros. And then he's got the picture of Picard going, there are 4 lights.
There you go.
And that was so timely.
It's the quality crossover content between More Than Just Code and Spotcast for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true.
Draw the Venn diagram of...
So I'm actually logged in as Spotcast, so I'll go and I'll retweet that one.
Yeah.
And then I'll go over to MTJC and I'll retweet it from there because I have that power.
It's all sort of weird sort of stuff here, these ways that things of technology have changed. So, the very tail end of this show, we were sort of half joking about like, well, what would we do to end like the way that Loki ended this week? We can't do a visual flash kind of thing. There's no fade to black that we can do. So white noise is maybe the best that we can do, or utter silence. And it reminded me of the fact that like nowadays you can't really have a hidden track when you're listening to an album on streaming, right? Just briefly, I remember my one of my cousins and I, we had a CD copy of Nirvana's Nevermind, and didn't realize there was a hidden track, endless, nameless, there at the end after Something in the Way. And in the version that we had, after Something in the Way ends, which is where we always thought, oh, it stopped, okay, let's play everything again or put it on shuffle, or what we had. There's like 10 minutes of silence, and then you suddenly get this weirdo song. I don't know how you have that sort of thing nowadays.
The
whoops, I just discovered.
Yeah, I think Nirvana did that, or somebody did that. Like they had an extra bonus track that they snuck on the end of a CD, I think, right, John?
Yeah, I mean that's what Jaime's referencing, but it was pretty common occurrence in the 90s and early 2000s for artists to hide a track in their albums on CD because that was the format, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And everybody do it as like, I think what we recall is the last song when you see it in a upgraded CD player. So not just one that could play the music and change tracks, but one that showed you playing details. We finally saw and said, oh, that's why it's like 20 minutes or something like that, right? Because you've got, a song that's like less than 5 minutes and another song that's quite a bit longer, like 7-ish minutes. And then 10 minutes of silence in between. So you just add it up. It's like, oh, this weirdo 20-minute song.
Yeah.
20-minute track, I should say. 20-minute track.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting thing because, again, the artists had more space than they were used to, and they weren't being published on vinyl at that point, right? So there was no need for a parallel. Yeah. A lot of them weren't even putting out a vinyl version of their music, so it didn't really become an issue. But of course, quickly it transitioned from CD to digital, and then you're right, Jaime. It just sort of became a bit of a weird thing where you get this sort of long stretch of silence, which I guess if you're listening to an entire album, I must admit I don't think I've ever done this because most of the stuff that I would do that, like if I'm going to put on Nevermind, I'll just put on. I have the CD, but I'd be curious to know how that does play out on something like Spotify.
Yeah, if you wanted to be authentic, it really should play silence for 10 minutes and make you wonder what happened. And I guess it was sort of the era not that long after when people started putting like music videos also on the CD as like, I assume it must have been like postage stamp sized videos.
Well, yeah, like I have a couple of Peter Gabriel albums that have, or discs that had, they used to have a multimedia thing where you'd put it into your computer and it would play tracks, right? But all that stuff doesn't work anymore, right? Because the software doesn't work. Well, I mean, some of my old computers will play it, but yeah, like I think there's a new Gabriel album I have that has like a CD media thing on it.
Yeah, I have a few different ones. I mean, I have a pretty massive, as Tim knows, a pretty massive music collection. And yeah, there's a number of discs over the years that have a multimedia component. Some of them would have video content as well. Some of them would have extra tracks or outtakes or, early drafts of stuff. And I remember one in particular was a Matthew Good album where when you popped it in your player, it basically got you access to a secret website. And from that website, you could download a couple of other versions of some of the songs. So it was basically like adding MP3s into your mix for purchasing the CD, but you couldn't access that site without getting the URL from the disc.
Yeah. And there was also, I don't know if you like Sgt. Pepper's original cut had
Her Majesty.
In the very inner spiral, the Beatles had put a little loop, right?
Yeah, I just pasted into our show notes the hidden track thing from Wikipedia, and there's actually a pretty long list of stuff in here. Of course, they mentioned Her Majesty from Abbey Road on there, and of course they did that for a couple of Beatles albums. But yeah, they even mentioned the double grooving that they used to do on some albums, right? Like they mentioned Magic Tie and Handkerchief, the Monty Python record that has another groove that you can find on the vinyl.
So here we go here. So they talk about the 1991 CD, Nevermind. So 10-year-old me and my also 10-year-old cousin, who, for those of you kiddos whose birth year starts with a 20, we didn't have the interwebs back then in the US of A. It's certainly not like we would have, nowadays. So to us, I don't remember exactly what we thought, but it might as well have been a ghost has inhabited this music player, because the track listing says 12 songs. It wasn't playing anything. Obviously, it must have been done. We were doing something else. We weren't just watching the CD player move along. We were playing video games or doing whatever it was we were doing, and it went silent. Okay, whatever. Nobody felt like getting up to start the disc again, and suddenly it starts playing music, which what would your reaction be exactly? Like, oh, hidden track. I'm like, we're 10. We didn't know about hidden tracks. How would we have discovered that unless somebody specifically brought up, hey, here's these hidden tracks on vinyl records, sort of thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And there's also like before the internet, we used to have to run our records backwards, but on the wall there's a song called Empty Spaces, and the line is, what will we use to fill the empty spaces? And right after is a sort of weird sound effect, and if what it is actually Roger Waters talking, like recorded and put on the thing backwards. And it says, congratulations, you've discovered the secret message, and then send your message to Old Pink care of, and then he puts an address in there. Ongoing history of new music. Alan Cross has covered this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Special. He did a whole series on vinyl records, like I think 4 or 5 series long, but it's all about, he does alternative music as opposed to like mainstream stuff. But,
yeah. Jaime, did you see the in the same document, the same article, the Weird Al Yankovic one in here? So Weird Al Yankovic's "Bite Me" from the album Off the Deep End was put, which of course has the homage to the Nirvana cover. It's him naked in the pool. Was put on after 10 minutes of silence to scare listeners who had forgotten to turn off the CD player. It was a loose parody of "Endless Nameless" by Nirvana. The cover of Off the Deep End is also a parody of the album, containing the track "Nevermind," and its first track is a parody of the album's first track, "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Yeah, so I like that he was actually using it. He's weaponizing the hidden track.
I actually have a one of the songs I listened to by Tom Petty, where he says at the beginning of the song, or the end of the song, I think it's the end of the song, he says, this message is for the people who are on the LPs. It's now time to turn the thing over. But if you're listening on the CD, it's not, just sit tight. We'll be right back.
Yeah. And kind of looking down this list by the time, so if I was 10, when Nevermind, by the time that Green Day's Dookie debuts, which also has the secret song, Hidden Track, All By Myself, we knew what to do then, right? By this point, we would have been like 13. So
yep. It was something that by the time, I obviously am just a bit older than you, Jaime. By the time, we were in our teen years and these things started popping up, when we bought a new CD, we would pop it in the player and see. Like, that was a question. It became,
you could see the number of tracks on the...
Because it's not technically a track. They would just make a really long last track, right? Because it wasn't like a separate song most of the time. It was actually the last file on the CD would be like 26 minutes long, and it would be like a 5-minute song and then like 10 minutes of silence and then another song, right? So it was deliberately meant to be like obscured by the fact that but it really became clear when we started ripping stuff for the first time, right? You'd get a CD and you'd make a copy of it and you'd pop it in there and you'd be like, why is the last track like 22 minutes long? And there it is. Okay, there's a bonus track in there.
Definitely a different era. The other sort of related thing that comes to mind in terms of how information is so different. I looked this up. So Mortal Kombat 2 came out in arcades in 1993. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, kiddos, you couldn't just look on the interwebs to see, what exactly is all the move list? What's all the fatalities? No. You found the one kid, and I don't know how these kids... if there was like a secret cabal of them throughout the United States or something. Like, I don't know how this traveled in some viral sense. But back then, you would have some kid who would have the magic $10 a copy from like Kinko's complete move lists from Mortal Kombat. And I just looked up a inflation calculator at $10 per copy at $1993 would be worth $20 today. A little bit over $20. So that's quite a chunk of change. So, you go to Kinko's, you get this out, that kid was easily selling like 10 copies right there. So
that's actually some pretty shrewd entrepreneurship. And we used to get that stuff like when I was a nerdy kid, big shock. We used to buy like Game Pro and EGM and other like gaming magazines right off the racks. And they would have a lot of that stuff, right? The little codes, the cheat codes for like your home video games. And sometimes they would have arcade breakdowns and stuff like that. And that was, again, you sort of could use that in turn as like a currency of like, oh, hey, how about we get together on Friday night? I've got all the cheat codes. And people would be like, oh, yeah, come on over.
Yeah, I assume that somebody initially had, like a parent or somebody who worked at Midway Games and just like exfiltrated this information from the company, and somehow it made its way. El Paso, Texas, it's a major city, but it's not like New York or LA size, and somehow it made it to us out there in the desert.
Yeah, it does make you appreciate how everything's at your fingertips. The number of times I have said to my kids over the years, you literally have the font of human knowledge in your pocket. Please stop asking me questions. I'm a smart person. I have a very strong memory, but please, there are lines, and I know you have a device that can give you all that information.
But is it properly cataloged? That's the question.
Well, and is it from a reliable source? Is the game I like to play with my kids because, of course, my background and experiences says always question the source of information.
Yeah. I love it when people say, they are out to get us and they are doing this. And I'm always thinking, like, the first response I is, who's they?
And also, if you want to really be conspiratorial, they don't care about you. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, true.
You are less than the dirt on their shoes.
Yeah, that's the part about conspiracy theories that makes it unfathomable.
This billionaire is trying to control us. Like, yeah, the billionaire doesn't need to control you. He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Buy and sell you 10 times over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a good. I go into the Reddit conspiracy boards when I have a good laugh. It's always fun to see people what they've cooked up lately. That and I don't know if you guys watch The Daily Show, but Jordan Klepper going to the Trump rallies is one of my favorite things I've ever watched in my entire life, where he's a comedian and he goes to these Trump rallies and he asks very logical questions and watches these people just walk themselves off the plank. It is so funny. The one from last week that just had me in stitches was where he's talking to this person at a Trump rally, and this person is decked out head to toe in Trump gear, just, like shirt, flag, hat, the whole 9 yards. And he says, why are you here at this rally? And he says, well, because the ordinary Americans can't afford to make ends meet anymore, and money's gotten so tight, and I'm here to protest. And he says, oh, cool, can I ask you about your fit? And he goes, oh yeah. And he goes, well, tell me what you got here. And he goes, oh, I've got this and I got that. And he goes, how much does that cost? And he goes, oh, this one's $30 and this one's $50 and this is this and this and this. And he goes, how many Trump hats would you say you've got? And he goes, oh, I love Trump hats. I buy them all the time. I must have 30. And he goes, and they cost like $25 a pop. He's like, oh yeah, sometimes they're even more expensive than that. And he goes, and ordinary people are having a tough time making ends meet, huh? And the guy just sort of looks at him sort of confoundedly. I'm like, yep, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like when people get caught in their own webs.
Yeah, scary though. They all get a vote.
Yeah, well, that's how it works, unfortunately. There's no IQ test to get your vote in. What's the climate like down there in Seattle, Jaime?
We're mostly okay, because it's more at the national level with the Speaker of the House stuff.
Oh, that was, I must admit, a perverse glee watching that happen down there. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, we had the same thing, and it took us like a week.
Yeah, it was a different circumstance. Ours put their foot firmly in their mouth and had to be fired, so it was a different circumstance. But just the backstabbing and infighting, and oh my goodness, it just was so interesting to read all the different angles on it. And oh, what a mess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir, Bob. All right. On that happy note.
Until next week.
Until we meet again.
All right. Have a good weekend, guys.
Bye.
Later. Bye.